He said, "We have a special guest tonight." And my sister smiled like the moment was hers. But then, he played my song. "Hi, I'm Kira. I used to be the girl no one noticed, until one quiet performance changed everything." Have you ever felt invisible? Even to your own family? Tell me in the comments, what moment finally made you feel seen? Now, if you have a few minutes, let me take you back to where it all began. I didn't think anyone would remember my performance, except maybe for how bad it might be. The July sun cast a warm glow across Uncle Marvin's backyard in suburban Kansas City. Folding chairs were scattered around the lawn, some tilted awkwardly in the uneven grass, while kids shrieked and chased bubbles through the humid air. The smell of grilled corn and ribs clung to the breeze, and the soda cans bobbing in ice chests hissed with condensation. A crooked banner flapped lazily between two trees. Whitman Family Reunion 2022. I had no plans to sing. Not after what happened at Cousin Jenna's graduation party 3 years ago, where I stood in front of our family, guitar trembling in my hands, and sang while half the adults chatted loudly about mortgage rates and new recipes. I remember staring at my mom's face, hoping for some sign of encouragement, but she was too busy refilling potato salad. That day, I promised myself, never again. Still, I had brought my guitar, just in case. It sat in the back seat of my car, zipped in its case, like a secret I wasn't ready to share. I figured I'd sneak away after dessert, maybe call Tara and complain about the heat. Tara had texted me earlier. "If Sabrina tries to upstage everyone again, I want details." Good luck surviving. Of course, Sabrina had already started her show. She wore a summer dress in some color that shimmered differently depending on how the light hit it. Probably expensive. Probably on sale from a boutique I couldn't pronounce. She was telling a group of aunts a hilarious story from work that involved her boss's cat and a fire alarm. They ate it up. I kept to the side, near the drinks cooler. That's when she spotted me. "Oh, look," she said loudly. "Kira's hiding. Are you practicing in your head? This'll be TikTok material for sure." A few cousins laughed. Someone even pulled out their phone. I turned away and busied myself digging for a root beer. Uncle Marvin took the mic, grinning in his Hawaiian shirt like he was about to introduce a county fair pie-eating contest. All right. Time for our world-famous Whitman family talent show. First up, well, this is a surprise, Miss Kira Whitman. I nearly dropped the can. Several heads turned toward me. A few claps. I caught my mother's surprised expression across the yard. Eyebrows up, half a smile forming. Sabrina smirked and gave me a slow, sarcastic golf clap. I could have said no. I should have. But instead, I walked to my car, unzipped the case, and pulled out the guitar. The strings felt dry, almost unfamiliar under my fingers. My stomach flipped. The plywood stage creaked as I climbed the two makeshift steps. The microphone buzzed faintly. My heart pounded in my chest like it was trying to escape. I adjusted the strap, looked down at the ground, and started to play. My voice cracked at first. Too soft. I focused on the lyrics. Lines I had written in a sleepless moment months ago. I live in corners, in coffee cups, where no one looks, but the silence fills up. A few toddlers ran by, laughing. One uncle yelled across the yard about more napkins, but I kept going. Halfway through the second verse, something shifted. I hit a note just right, and it steadied me. My hands stopped trembling. And that's when I saw him. A man in khakis and sunglasses, sitting alone on a picnic bench near the back. Everyone else was talking, chewing, looking around, but he was still. Focused. Listening. The last chord lingered as I let the final lyric drift out. But maybe someday, I'll take up space. Silence. Then, from the back, a single deliberate clap. The man in sunglasses. I looked up, surprised. He nodded once, and just as quickly he disappeared into the crowd. As I stepped off the plywood platform, the sun felt harsher, as if the light itself was scrutinizing me. My fingers tingled from the pressure I had put on the strings, and I realized I'd been holding my breath the entire second verse. No one said anything. No pats on the back. No great job from cousins. I weaved through folding chairs, pretending to check my phone like I was busy. It buzzed. Tara again. "How's it going? Is Sabrina already stealing the spotlight?" I didn't reply. Instead, I wandered past the dessert table, where condensation had melted the frosting off a tray of cupcakes. My aunt was talking about a neighbor's pool renovation. A toddler spilled pink lemonade and started crying. Everything moved around me as if nothing had happened, as if my singing hadn't cracked open something vulnerable I'd tried so long to hide. I slipped behind the garage, into the patch of shade where no one ever sat. The cicadas buzzed loudly in the trees above, a relentless chorus of heat and rhythm. I leaned against the siding and stared at my guitar. The grain on its body was worn smooth near the sound hole. I had carved a tiny star near the bridge when I was 16 and heartbroken and hopeful. For a minute, I wondered if I had imagined the man in sunglasses. Maybe he was just someone looking for a seat in the shade. But I hadn't imagined the clap. It echoed in my chest longer than the song had lasted. I used to think music had to be loud to be heard, but maybe it just needed to find the right ears. And maybe, just maybe, being invisible didn't mean being insignificant. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of someone lighting sparklers in the driveway. Laughter floated from the front yard. I took one last look at my guitar, then zipped it slowly back into its case. That one clap had spoken louder than the silence ever could. "Did you write that song?" my cousin Daryl asked. "It wasn't bad. Kinda sad, though." His voice cut through the low hum of family chatter and the occasional sizzle from the grill. I was sitting alone by the drinks table again, legs tucked under me in a faded lawn chair, trying to look like I belonged somewhere. The sun had begun its descent, softening everything into a golden haze. Across the yard, kids now covered in sticky popsicle streaks darted between picnic tables, while someone's Bluetooth speaker played a country song too quietly to mask the crunch of plastic plates. I looked at Daryl. He was hunched over his phone, scrolling through the live stream he'd posted of the talent show earlier. "Kinda sad, though," repeated in my mind like an echo I couldn't turn off. I gave a weak smile. "Yeah, I wrote it last winter." "Cool," he said, tapping the screen. "Sabrina's got like twice the views already. She did that joke with the paper towel roll voices again. People love that stuff." I glanced toward her, laughing with two of our aunts, a hand on her hip like she owned the place. She wasn't even watching the replay. She didn't need to. The barbecue smoke drifted lazily past, blending with the sugary scent of lemonade sweating through its pitcher. My cup had long since watered down, but I sipped anyway. It gave me something to do with my hands. Sabrina's voice rang out. "At least she didn't sing off key, right?" she said, loud enough for the aunts to hear. They chuckled politely, uncertain if it was meant to be a joke. I stood quickly. "Going to check on the kids," I muttered, though I had no idea where any of them were. As I stepped behind the garage, the same shady patch I'd found earlier, I heard a voice behind me. "You have something," he said, raw, honest. I turned. The man in sunglasses, now removed, stood there, looking oddly casual with his sleeves rolled up and his sunglasses hooked on the front of his shirt. "Sorry?" I asked. He extended a card between two fingers. "Michael Linton, A&R consultant. I work with artists. And occasionally, I crash family reunions." I took the card. The name didn't ring a bell, but the weight of the cardstock felt expensive. He smiled, not in the slick way some men do, but in the way someone does when they've been thinking about something all afternoon and finally get to say it out loud. "I've been to 100 talent shows," he said. "Most people try to perform. You didn't. You just were." I didn't know what to say. My fingers clutched the edge of the card tighter than necessary. Somewhere nearby, a firework popped too early in the daylight, and a few kids squealed with delight. "Anyway," he said, nodding once, "if you're interested, reach out." He turned and walked away. No dramatics. Just faded into the crowd like he'd never been there. I stared at the card. My cousin Daryl had wandered up behind me. "Probably just felt bad," he said, peeking over my shoulder. "Old guys love sad songs." I didn't answer. Have you ever felt invisible in a room full of people? Especially your own family? Like your voice only echoes back at you? Unheard? If you've been there, comment number 8 below. Now, let's see what happened next. Later, as the lawn cleared and people packed up folding chairs and foil-wrapped leftovers, I took a picture of the card and texted it to Tara. Her reply came in seconds. "Google him." Now. So I did. Articles, interviews, photos with singers I'd followed for years. Headlines like "Linton Strikes Gold Again" and "The Quiet Scout Behind the Hits." My fingers hovered over my screen, the card now beside my laptop. I opened my email. There it was. The subject line read, "Your song stayed with me." The cursor blinked back at me, waiting. I sat back in the old recliner in Uncle Marvin's den, the only place that hadn't been overtaken by cousins watching game shows or raiding the snack table. The air smelled faintly of cedar and cologne. I could still hear muffled laughter outside as relatives lingered under citronella torches, trading stories and leftovers. I read the subject line again. Your song stayed with me. I hadn't even realized how tightly I was holding my breath until I exhaled, slow and shaky. Why would someone like him remember a song like mine? I thought about Sabrina, the way she floated from one group to another with effortless charm, always knowing what to say. And here I was, fumbling through my voice like it didn't quite belong to me. The screen blinked. I opened the message. It was brief. 3 lines. "Kira, thank you for sharing your voice today. That song was something special. If you're open to it, I'd love to hear more. Michael." That was it. No pressure, no promises. Just an open door I never expected. I reread the message 3 more times. My thumb hovered over the reply button. Tara's name popped up again. "Well, don't just stare at it." I typed, "Is this real life?" She wrote back instantly, "Girl, yes. Now breathe and say thank you before he thinks you ghosted him." Outside, the sparklers had started. Little fountains of light lit up the darkening yard while uncles lit citronella candles, and moms chased toddlers with wet wipes. The kind of ending every family party has, where nothing truly exciting should happen. But somehow, today felt different. I stood quietly in the hallway, watching it all from behind the screen door. The cicadas hummed louder now, a kind of lullaby for long summer nights. Sabrina's laugh echoed from the patio again, bright and unbothered. But in my hand I held something rare, a moment of being seen. And that, I realized, might matter more than being liked. Tara called and said, "If you don't meet him, I'll pretend to be you and go myself." My laptop fan was humming like it was more anxious than I was. I typed a few words, deleted them, and typed again. The email stared back like a dare. I'd never met a music producer before, especially not one who showed up behind the lemonade table at a family reunion. "If you don't meet him, I'll pretend to be you and go by myself," Tara said, wide-eyed on video chat. I laughed, nervously. I don't even know what I'd say. Say yes, Tara insisted. Say thank you. Say you'll be there. You've got more to offer than you let yourself believe. I nodded, more to myself than to her. After we hung up, I hesitated again and called Mom. That's nice, hun. Oh, Sabrina's got her first segment airing tonight. Can you believe it? Live TV. I smiled weakly. Cool, Mom. I just wanted to tell you about. Never mind. Good luck with the segment. That evening, I walked to the cafe, clutching my bag like it might talk me out of it. The coffee shop was all reclaimed wood, Edison bulbs, and soft indie music. Michael Linton sat at a corner table, tapping his fingers on a ceramic mug, his sunglasses perched on top of his head this time. Thanks for coming, he said, nodding at me like we'd known each other longer than 24 hours. Your song wasn't perfect, he added, but it was human. We need more of that. So why me? I finally asked. Because most people try to be someone. You just were. That's rarer than you think. He handed me a flash drive. A cleaned-up version of your live take. I've got a small studio set up. Nothing fancy. If you're serious, I'd love to help you demo something. No promises. But if you're serious, this could be something. I looked down at the flash drive, then back up. I'm serious, I said, the words steadier than I expected. The streetlights flickered on as I walked home, flash drive in hand like a backstage pass to a future I hadn't dared to imagine. The air was thick with summer, crickets rising like backup singers. I didn't know what was next, but for once, I wasn't afraid to find out. Back at my apartment, the fan buzzed on my desk, still louder than my thoughts. I set the flash drive next to my keyboard and just looked at it for a while. I hadn't had a demo. I hadn't even had a plan. But something about the way Michael Linton looked at me, like I wasn't a side note in someone else's story, made me want to try. I played the demo file. My voice, softer than I remembered, filled the room like something fragile and whole. The cleaned-up track didn't erase the nervous tremble in my first few bars, and I was glad for that. It made it real. Tara called again later that night. She didn't say much, just played a kazoo into the phone like a victory song. I laughed until I snorted. We used to dream together in dorm rooms, writing song titles on sticky notes we'd lose by morning. Somehow, she never stopped believing. Don't let this be a someday you story, she said. You're in it now. I didn't sleep much. I kept replaying our conversation, Linton's offer, and the sound of my own song echoing back to me in a way that felt like permission. I opened a notebook and began scribbling lines, ideas, rhythms. My fingers cramped, but I didn't care. In the silence of 3 a.m., with only the fridge humming and a streetlight blinking outside, I whispered to myself, this might actually be happening. And for the first time in a long while, I believed it. The next morning, I emailed Linton. I thanked him. I said I was ready. I pressed send and smiled, not because I knew what came next, but because I finally wanted to find out. I slipped the flash drive into my bag again, next to my old songwriting journal. There was work to do, but it didn't feel heavy. It felt like waking up. The days that followed were strangely quiet. Not quiet in the sense of silence, but in the way my routine suddenly felt too small. Every morning, I'd open my email, stare at the inbox, and reread Linton's message as if it might change. I hadn't told anyone at work. My coworkers would have just raised eyebrows or asked if I was auditioning for American Idol, but that wasn't what this was. This felt like the start of a private, precious experiment. At night, I'd sit on the floor with my guitar, thumbs strumming across old chords, singing softly so I didn't wake my neighbors. I started writing again, scribbling half poems on napkins, receipts, the backs of envelopes. Tara sent me goofy voice memos with harmony ideas. Try this, she'd hum, slightly off-key on purpose just to make me laugh. And I did, more than I had in months. One afternoon, I visited my childhood bedroom at Mom's place. The posters were still there. Sarah Bareilles, Nora Jones, a tattered sheet of staff paper taped above my old desk. I found my high school songbook in a box labeled Kira, Do Not Throw Out. Flipping through it, I could see how much I'd once believed music was a path, not just a phase. Back home, I lit a candle, made tea, and plugged in the flash drive. I listened again. This time, not for flaws, but for possibilities. Maybe it wasn't about being the best voice in the room. Maybe it was about saying something only I could say, even if I said it quietly. By the weekend, I had written 3 new songs. Not all of them were good. One was basically a grocery list that rhymed. But one had something. A hook. A line that made my chest tighten. If you hear me now, it means I stayed. I texted it to Tara, who replied, Now we're cooking. Sunday evening, I received another email from Linton. You still in? Studio's in town one more week. I stared at the blinking cursor again, only this time, I didn't hesitate. I replied, Yes. When and where? And this time, I meant it with my whole chest. I was still scared. But the kind of scared that comes when you're finally heading somewhere you've always wanted to go. When Uncle Marvin said a special guest wanted to speak, Sabrina straightened her blouse like she was going on camera. The pavilion shimmered with late summer sunlight. A gentle breeze carried the scent of lake water and lemon cake through the wide-open windows. Inside, family members milled about in pressed slacks and summer dresses, paper plates in hand, chatting over low jazz music drifting from the Bluetooth speaker near the buffet table. Grandpa Ed's 80th birthday was a bigger deal than I'd expected. White linen tablecloths, embossed napkins, and even those fancy tiered trays of cookies that no one touches until the kids make a mess of them. I'd slipped in quietly, nodding to a few cousins who offered half smiles before returning to their conversations. No one expected me to do anything noteworthy today, and honestly, that suited me just fine. Sabrina, of course, was radiant. Her toast was delivered like she'd rehearsed it, confident, clever, full of family references just obscure enough to sound intimate. To Grandpa Ed, whose love of crossword puzzles taught us all the meaning of the word tenacity. To the Whitman family legacy. Applause, flashbulbs, laughter. She was born for this kind of spotlight. I stood near the back by the drink station, my cup of ginger ale sweating through a napkin. Then came the moment. Uncle Marvin cleared his throat and tapped the mic with 2 fingers. We've got someone special who wanted to say a few words today, a guest who's joined us again, and who was moved by something he heard not long ago. That's when Sabrina perked up. She smoothed her blouse, adjusted her earrings, and stood a little straighter, the way she used to when our local news team came to her high school for student features. Michael Linton walked in without ceremony. No entourage, no booming announcement. Just khakis, a navy linen shirt, and the same quiet smile he'd worn behind his sunglasses at the reunion. He shook Grandpa Ed's hand, handed him a small envelope, and turned toward the crowd. I won't take much of your time, he began. His voice was low but carried, the kind that made people lean in. 3 months ago, I came to the Whitman family reunion with a friend. I didn't expect to discover anything except maybe a good plate of ribs. Light chuckles. But I heard something, a voice that was raw, moving, and utterly real. Sabrina's shoulders lifted, her hands clasped in front of her like she was ready to receive a trophy. Her smile flickered in anticipation. Michael continued. That voice belonged to her. He turned toward me. A beat of silence stretched across the room like a taut string. Have you ever had someone else take credit for your light? Until the day your truth finally broke through? That mix of shock, justice, and quiet pride? If that moment speaks to you, comment number 9 below. Let's keep going. I could hear the soft fizz of a soda can opening somewhere behind me. He pointed gently. Kira. All eyes swiveled, Sabrina's smile faltered, then froze completely. A fork clinked against a plate. "This flash drive," he said, holding it up, "contains a demo we recorded just last week. It's unpolished. But I wanted you to hear what I heard that day." He handed the drive to Uncle Marvin, who inserted it into the speaker system. A soft guitar intro began, my own shaky strum, now smoothed over in post. Then my voice filled the pavilion. Not booming, not perfect, but unmistakably mine. No one said a word. Sabrina stood still, her cup clenched tighter now, the condensation dripping onto her knuckles. An aunt whispered, "She can really sing?" Grandpa Ed nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the speaker. As my chorus rose and fell like breath, I didn't look at anyone. I just stood there, feet anchored to the floor, hands trembling slightly, but I didn't hide. And when the second verse began, no one had moved. Somewhere in the back, a younger cousin leaned toward her mother and whispered, "Is that really Kira?" The mother nodded but didn't answer, eyes still fixed on the speaker. I could feel the subtle shift in the room, how silence took on a different texture. Not discomfort, not confusion, just attention. People were really listening. A few heads turned toward me, but I didn't shrink back. I let the music carry them through the words I'd written late one night, alone in my apartment, unsure anyone would ever hear them. Near the front, Grandpa Ed slowly rose from his seat and turned toward me. His steps were measured but steady as he made his way over. He didn't say much. He never had to. He simply rested a hand on my shoulder and gave it a gentle squeeze. It was enough. Michael watched from the side, arms crossed, the faintest nod confirming that this reaction, this moment, was what he knew could happen. And then, there was Sabrina. She blinked quickly and set her drink down. I saw her take a deep breath, step forward like she might speak, but something in the stillness of the room stopped her. She hesitated, smiled too brightly, then faded into the background, swallowed by the quiet. As the final note played, no one applauded right away. There was a kind of reverence in the stillness. It wasn't until the Bluetooth speaker gave its soft ping to indicate the track had ended that someone, maybe Cousin Lila, began to clap. A moment later, it rippled through the room, tentative at first, then genuine. But I wasn't listening to claps. My heart was too full of something else. Relief. Maybe. Or release. I glanced down at my shoes, then looked up again just in time to see Michael nod toward me one last time and head toward the exit. At that moment, with the echo of my song still hanging in the air, I realized I hadn't just been heard. I had been seen. "You know, I didn't mean it like that," Sabrina said, brushing invisible lint off her sleeve. The party had shifted into that dreamy late-evening lull. The kids were either curled up on blankets, half asleep under the string lights, or huddled in corners playing quiet games. The grown-ups gathered in small clusters, sipping decaf and picking at the leftover cake like it might reveal something new with each bite. I sat at one of the picnic tables, the plastic sticking slightly to the back of my legs. My demo had already made its quiet round. Everyone knew, whether they said anything or not. Aunt Jo whispered something to Mom, who gave one of those polite nods that didn't reach her eyes. A few cousins came by with half-curious smiles. "Didn't realize you were into music like that," one of them said, as if I'd just revealed a talent for taxidermy. I smiled. It wasn't cruel, just casual ignorance, the kind that grows when no one's been paying close attention. Mom stopped by briefly. "That was lovely, sweetheart," she said, then quickly added, "Did you see Sabrina's new headshots? They're on her phone. She looks so grown up." I nodded. She always does. And then, there she was. Sabrina appeared at my side like she had something urgent and invisible to handle. She didn't sit, just stood, arms crossed, looking out at the lake like she was waiting for a director to yell cut. "It was a nice demo," she said finally, like a stranger might. Then added, "You know, I didn't mean all that stuff back then. The jokes." I looked at her. "Which ones?" She made a face. "Don't make me list them." "I'm just wondering if you even remember." She gave a short, nervous laugh. "Of course I do. I don't know. I thought you knew it was teasing. You've always been, you know, sensitive." I wanted to be angry, but I wasn't. "Not anymore." "Maybe," I said, "but now I'm not." There was a long pause. She looked down at her shoes. For the first time in a while, she didn't seem like the brightest person in the room. Just a sister, trying to reframe the past into something less sharp. "Look, I was always the loud one. I think I got used to the attention. I thought that was how you earned it. By taking up space. I didn't realize you were already in the room." I wasn't expecting that. "I used to write poems in middle school," I said quietly. "You found them once. Read one out loud at your sleepover. Everyone laughed." She winced. "I was awful." I shrugged. "You were 13. We both were." She finally sat down across from me. The space between us filled with the low hum of jazz from someone's Bluetooth speaker and the scent of citronella candles trying to keep mosquitoes at bay. "So what happens next?" she asked. I looked around at the gathering, at Grandpa in his folding chair, slowly nodding off with a napkin still tucked in his collar, at Tara across the lawn, raising her cup to me when she caught my eye, at the pale pink sky folding into twilight. "I'll stop waiting," I said, "for someone else to let me speak." Sabrina nodded. "Fair enough." We sat there for a moment, quiet. For once, silence didn't feel like something to fill. It felt earned. Eventually, Sabrina stood up. "Well, you were great, you know. Even Mom noticed. She just doesn't know how to show it." "Maybe," I said, not to argue, just to acknowledge the uncertainty. As she walked away, I noticed her hands clenched tighter than before. I didn't wish her harm. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to hold my own space in the world, and tonight, I had. Back at home, the house was still. I changed into my favorite old t-shirt, the one with faded letters from a long-forgotten high school club. I pulled my hair into a loose bun and patted it into the small corner I called my studio. Just a desk, a second-hand microphone, and too many sticky notes. I sat for a long time, just staring at the yellow square stuck to the wall above my screen. For years it read, "Maybe someday." I peeled it off, replaced it with a new one, freshly inked in my neatest handwriting. "You don't need a spotlight to be seen." The weight I didn't even know I'd been carrying started to lift. I wasn't chasing applause anymore. I was following resonance. Mine. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The next morning, I woke up early. Earlier than I needed to. The house was bathed in that bluish pre-dawn light that made everything feel like a memory before it even happened. I brewed coffee, the kind I usually saved for weekends, and let it steep a little longer than usual. Strong. Grounding. I sat by the window with my mug, watching a squirrel navigate the power line like a tightrope artist. The world was quiet, but inside me, something stirred. Momentum, maybe. My phone buzzed. A message from Tara. "So, when's the album dropping?" I smiled and replied, "Give me a month. Or 3. Another ping. This time from Michael. "Ready to talk next steps when you are. Just say the word." I stared at the screen, heart light but steady. For the first time, it didn't feel like I was waiting for permission. It felt like I was already on my way. Somewhere in the background, my song played faintly from the Bluetooth speaker I'd left on by accident, the same demo from the party. But this time, it felt different. This time, it filled the room, not with noise, but with clarity. I took a long sip of coffee and whispered to no one in particular. Let's see where this goes. It was snowing the morning I uploaded my demo online. Nobody in my family knew. The flakes came down soft and slanted, like they'd been falling all night and only now decided to show themselves. From my apartment window, the street looked glazed over in white, and everything beyond it, a dogwood tree, a distant fire hydrant, the edge of the bus stop sign, felt muffled, like someone had turned down the volume on the world. I wrapped myself in the same knit cardigan I always wore on nervous days. The heater hissed near my feet, and my coffee, too strong, too bitter, steamed in a chipped mug that once said, "World's okayest musician." The print had started to fade. My fingers hovered above the keyboard for what felt like hours. The file was ready. The cover image had been selected. Just a photo of the old mic I used, framed against corkboard and tape. There were no marketing plans, no hashtags lined up. Just a quiet voice and a quiet song, waiting. And then, without fanfare or ceremony, I hit upload. It was done. I didn't text Tara right away. I didn't tell Michael. It wasn't about that anymore. Grandma once told me, back when she still remembered everyone's names and could knit a whole scarf during a single baseball game. If your voice is a gift, use it, even if no one claps. I used to think she meant Sunday choir, but maybe she meant mornings like this. A few hours later, my inbox pinged. Subject: Heard your song at 3 a.m.? Saved me. No signature. Just that. One line. From someone in Vermont, according to the metadata. I read it twice, then again. My hands shook just a little. Not from shock, but from something quieter, like recognition. I let myself cry. Not the big, racking kind. Just a few slow tears while I sat cross-legged on my living room rug, the snow still falling, the room smelling faintly of cinnamon and old paper. I'd spent so long wondering if my voice mattered. Maybe it didn't have to matter to many. Maybe one was enough. My phone buzzed with a voice note. Tara. You did it, she said, her voice cracking near the end. People are going to find you. But don't forget, you found you first. I saved the message, played it again, just once. Then I opened a new notebook, one I'd been saving for when I felt ready to begin again. Michael had emailed too, just 2 lines. New session next week? Got an idea. No pressure. No pressure. Those 2 words used to scare me more than deadlines. They meant freedom. They meant it was up to me. I lit the lavender candle Tara gave me last Christmas, the one labeled Creative Fire in cursive script, and set it on my desk. Its scent curled around my notes, my old lyrics pinned up like old memories that still breathed a little. I picked up my guitar, ran a finger down the fretboard, and hit record on my mic app. This time, I sang, I don't need permission. The melody came out low, almost like a hum, something private, but strong enough to carry. Outside, a car rolled slowly by, tires crunching over icy asphalt. I didn't look up. I didn't need to. The world would turn, and I would sing. I kept writing, kept recording. Scraps of lyrics, half-finished ideas, whispers that once would have gone straight to the trash. Now they were seeds. I didn't know what would grow yet, but I knew I was planting something. Later that night, I finally framed the old family photo I'd tucked in a drawer years ago, one of the few where I wasn't looking down or cropped out. We were all there, Grandpa with his hat, Mom mid-blink, Sabrina posing just a little too hard, and me in the corner, guitar in lap, half smiling. I placed it on my shelf, right above my desk. Beneath it, I stuck a new note. Still here. That weekend, I walked to the small coffee shop down the block. Winter Brew, the one with cinnamon rolls the size of your face. The barista, Nate, nodded at me as he prepared my usual. That your voice I heard on Soundstream this morning? He asked casually. I blinked. You heard that? He grinned. Are you kidding? It's been on replay all day. Folks have been shazamming it nonstop. I took the paper cup with both hands, warmth seeping through my gloves. For a long time, I thought being seen meant stepping into someone else's light. Now I realized, maybe it meant holding your own, no matter how small. Back at my apartment, I jotted down new lines in my notebook. Nothing perfect, just honest. The radiator ticked and groaned. The candle was almost gone. I pressed record one more time. Just me, my guitar, and a snow-draped world outside. And as the lyrics poured out, I smiled. Not for the future, not for the praise, but because I'd kept a promise to the girl I used to be. To sing, even when no one was watching. The next morning, I printed out that anonymous comment from Vermont. I pinned it next to the corkboard just above my desk lamp. It read, "Heard your song at 3 a.m., saved me." A reminder that it reached one person, that it mattered. My grandma used to say, "The best songs don't need a stage, they just need a soul to land in." So I kept singing, writing, building something no one else could give or take away. And in that quiet, snowy apartment, with coffee cooling on the sill and hope resting in my chest, I realized I wasn't waiting anymore. I was already there. Even though the snow kept falling outside, I knew winter had long melted inside me. I didn't need applause or a spotlight. I sang anyway, because I finally believed being myself was a song worth sharing. Life doesn't always hand us a stage, but that doesn't mean we don't deserve to be heard. Sometimes it only takes one person listening, one kind word, or a late-night message to remind us we still matter. And when we stop waiting for permission, we start seeing the worth that was always there. If this little story stirred a forgotten dream or reminded you of your own quiet strength, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like to hear more everyday stories with a gentle heart, consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for listening. Take care, and see you in the next story.